Howdy peeps, I'm Steve and I have thoughts on what it's like being on Wegovy. Welcome back. Today is going to be an exciting one, folks. Most of this video is devoted to gastric events. Now, if you haven't watched parts 1 through 3 of this series, I don't blame you. When I started working in this, I had no idea I'd be creating 4 videos on weight loss and Ozempic. If you haven't seen them, you might want to go watch some of the previous videos in this series. There is some knowledge in those videos that will help you out in this video. If you have watched those, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I try not to repeat myself, but I do need to make sure that some of what you've learned has stuck with you. Chapter markers are here to help you move around. So who am I, and why should you watch this video? Well, many people go through life enjoying the ride. I go through life collecting data points and analyzing them. I probably enjoy life less than most people, but I do learn more about what is going on. I've collected a lot of data points in my time on Wegovy, and I have a few things to teach. Now, I've only been on it for 10 months, and it takes about 15 months to reach peak weight loss, so I might not have all the facts, but I've learned enough to be able to pass a few things along. Remember, I ain't selling anything. I make plenty of money arranging ones and zeros for the man. I am not in any way associated with anyone that sells or makes Wegovy, Ozempic, or the generic semaglutide. I am never going to ask you to buy my new miracle weight loss cat puke supplement. But life is not free. I ask that you pay my YouTube tax by smashing that like button. That way, the great YouTube algorithm in the sky might decide someone else can watch this too. If you do really love this video at the end, give $5 to the next homeless person you see, and don't give a thought to how they will spend that money. And remember, if you have an eating disorder or a medical condition that impacts your weight, this video is not for you. Get the heck off of YouTube and talk to a real medical specialist that can help you deal with your condition. I am not giving medical advice. Whether you should take these drugs or not is a decision you should make with the help of a licensed medical professional. I am not one. All right, on with the show. The main thing you're probably here for is what does it feel like? And that honestly is pretty simple. You don't feel hungry most of the time. And when you do eat, you stop feeling hungry pretty quick. And you can feel really full after not eating as much as you used to. Imagine being on a diet, but not feeling super hungry all the time. To me, that's a superpower. I can eat breakfast at 11, a small snack in the middle of the afternoon, and then a small dinner, and go to bed feeling like the same way I did before when I was eating twice that much. Yes, I still have cravings for things, and sometimes I get the munchies, but most of the time when I do give in to that, I eat less. Or it ruins my appetite for the next meal. It really does change how your mind views what is an acceptable amount of food. This is not to say it is all unicorns and rainbows in Wegovy land. If you read the side effects on Ozempic and Wegovy, you will notice there is an increased number of gastric events. Gastric means the parts of the body that moves and processes food through you. Food goes in up here and goes out down there, and the less said about that, the better. Events. Now that means something memorable or notable, like a birthday party or anniversary. Perhaps a memory you will carry with you for the rest of your life. Sadly, putting the word event next to gastric does not make for a great combo. We are not talking about memories like eating the best blueberry pie at camp when you were 11 years old. No, we're talking more about that time your idiot half-uncle was walking across a cow pasture and decided to jump into a cow patty, only to discover, to everybody's horror, that it was not as dried out as he thought it was. Yuck! Now for the learning. These are not random, uncontrollable events. In fact, they're very logical. The trick comes in learning how to spot trouble before it happens. Early on in my Wegovy journey, my appetite varied a lot. Some days, I'd eat just like before. But other days, I would just be not hungry. There were several times when I just didn't eat for a day, sometimes even 2. Once, when I was traveling, this happened. It was easy to not eat. My schedule was a mess. I was running around doing stuff and very distracted. So I just didn't eat. And after 2 days of not eating, I was pretty hungry. I happened to pass by a Burger King and my body was screaming for food. I love Burger King, not McDonald's so much. That's because I'm not a fries guy. I like onion rings. BK has rings, Mickey D's has none. I went in and I got my usual pre-Wegovy order of 2 cheeseburgers and a small onion ring. Now those are regular cheeseburgers, single patties, not doubles, not Whoppers, just small cheeseburgers and a small onion ring. Not the kid-size ring, but just a small. I get back in the car and I start eating my rings because they're easy to eat when driving. Now I finish my rings and I start in on the first burger. Pretty good, I ate the first burger. Start on the second burger, but after a couple bites, I just couldn't eat anymore. I'm full. Yes, Wegovy for the win. I'm eating less, I'm feeling full, it's great. But hold on, let's remove Wegovy from this equation for a minute. What if I told you that for 3 days, all you can eat was 50% cheeseburgers and 50% onion rings? Not diet onion rings, regular, greasy, fried onion rings. Every time you take a bite of a burger, you have to eat a whole onion ring. Now, what would you expect to happen? If you ate nothing but that combo for 3 days, you should indeed expect a gastric event, a memory you might carry with you for the rest of your life. Now, pre-Wegovy, there is no way I would have even considered a diet of 50% onion rings. That would be crazy. But that's what I did. It's just I didn't stop to analyze the situation before I started eating. If I had done the math first, I would have thought of it this way. I haven't eaten anything for 2 days. The last time I ate was in the evening 3 days ago. That dinner was small because Wegovy was working. There is no food in my body, literally nothing, top to bottom. The only thing that's passed my lips has been water in the last 64 hours. Eating an onion ring with a burger might be okay, but matching onion rings bite for bite with burgers, not a good idea. And the term greased lightning, that exists for a reason. So, was it Wegovy side effect or just me being dumb? Now, not all events are so explosive. Actually, the explosive events are pretty easy compared to the other kind. Explosive events are over in a matter of seconds. Have you ever been to a fancy French restaurant and had a cheese plate? It comes out with some almonds and a few dried apricots. Well, believe it or not, those aren't there for just decoration. What those fancy French people know is cheese forms long proteins. That's why when you pull that slice of pizza, you get those luscious cheesy strings stretching back to the pie. Those fancy French people understand that if you eat too much cheese, these long proteins bind up inside of you. That's why they give you the dried fruit and the almonds to balance it out. So, you go to a fancy French place. You're on Wegovy. You knew you were going to the fancy French place for a nice romantic evening with your sweetheart. So you skipped lunch because on Wegovy it's easy to skip a meal. And that way you can be sure to be hungry in the evening so you can eat your entire dinner. Now you love cheese, so you order your French onion soup. And you eat most of it because you're hungry. You certainly eat all the cheese. And then you Chateaubriand and potatoes au gratin. That's steak and cheesy potatoes in American. But of course, Wegovy is still working. You have a few bites of potatoes, a few bites of steak, and you're stuffed. You're all done. It's over. Doggy bag time. A few days go by. You haven't gone to the bathroom. This is fine. You haven't eaten much. Wegovy for the win. But then a few more days. And then it's been about a week. And then, on day 10, you find yourself on the porcelain throne, praying to any god that will listen. If that god would just remove that whole raw baking potato from your nether regions, magically, you will devote your life to their worship. Now, looking back on the choices you made, you're eating less. For a day, you ate 80% cheese. Before Wegovy, no one eats 80% cheese. But on Wegovy, well, it might happen. It might be a memory you pass down to your grandkids. The trick is to think a little more before you eat and to do that kind of math, but also to do an in-depth after-action report after events that do happen. Nuclear reactor containment has failed. Maybe before we turn Chernobyl back on, we understand why we had a meltdown. If you don't figure it out, I can guarantee you that you will get a second chance to learn from your mistakes. These things don't happen very often, less than once a month. But I'm a pretty fast learner, and learning through pain and humiliation is pretty effective for me. I also know that I'm able to connect the dots faster than most. If you're on Wegovy and you're having persistent side effects, take a page from me and start paying very close attention to what you are eating. Modify your diet and try to avoid these effects. By the way, many of us fat people take antacids for things like heartburn and acid reflux. I'm usually a Tums man myself. Pepcid Complete is good too. If it's really bad, omeprazole. All of these reduce the acid in your stomach, but they work in different ways. You need acid to break food down. If you don't have enough acid, the food doesn't break down enough, and there may be complications. So be very careful on your dosages. I will never take omeprazole ever again. I've made several promises to nameless gods that I intend to keep. Also, everyone knows that if you drink alcohol on an empty stomach, you get drunk faster. Simple. Well, with Wegovy, you are more likely to have an empty stomach. So you need to be careful with alcohol. If you read the label on Wegovy, it says not to drink it. Sure, whatever, nerds. Now, if you watch my video on why diet and exercise don't work, you know I believe there is no bad foods. Everything is fine in moderation. 1 onion ring for 15 bites of food is probably good. But I did say there's one bad food, and here's the secret: sugary drinks. For some of you, this is going to be really hard to hear. You're saying, I'm going to go on Wegovy so I don't have to think about food. Wegovy will help me lose weight by making me see food differently. But I'm begging you to at least hear me out before you decide. There have been a few times where I have become nauseous after eating food. Not to the event level, thank goodness, but enough times for me to notice a pattern. In each case, it was after I had eaten something high in carbs, sugars, and hadn't eaten much for several hours or even the day before that. In all those cases, I ate more of the sugary thing than I was intending and felt like I needed to keep eating it. Remember back to my video on why diets don't work, and we learned about fast sugars, about the insulin response your body has when eating sugars. If you eat fast-acting sugar, it will just make you crave more sugar. I knew about this before I was on Wegovy. I knew that if I ate certain desserts, it was just going to make me want more. But with Wegovy, this gets harder because what is a lot is a new definition. On Wegovy, the glycemic cascade is so much easier to kick off with a much smaller amount of the dessert. Often, your body just doesn't have enough food in it. Just like my onion rings, what was okay in the past is now a full containment breach. Which brings me to my point on sugary drinks. Almost all drinks with sugar in them are high glycemic. Your body instantly turns them into sugar in your bloodstream. Now, if you have food inside of you when you drink a can of soda pop, it's fine because it mixes together and your body gets around to processing it with the food. But now, on Wegovy, there might not be anything else in there. So whammo, the sugar goes straight to the reactor core. And liquids don't make you feel full like food does. It passes down much faster. It's one of the things that Wegovy impacts less. So you might be eating less, but drinking the same. Or if the glycemic cascade kicks in, you might actually drink more. So instead of having a glass of orange juice and it making up only 10% of your calories, it might be 20 or 30%. Now, if someone said they were drinking enough sugar to have it be 20 or 30% of their diet, you'd think they're crazy. But on Wegovy, it can be very hard to understand when you're doing something crazy because you're just eating so much less. I don't have a lot of data to back this up, but if you're on Wegovy and you're nauseous a lot, I urge you to try to not drink things with sugar in them and see if your nausea goes away. I've met one person that couldn't tolerate Wegovy because they were nauseous all the time. I noticed they drank a few sodas each day. Not a lot, just 1 or 2, but every day. Another big change when you're on Wegovy is social things. As fat people, we know there are a lot of thinner folks that feel they are superior to us. Not just in the looks department. They feel they're more disciplined and they work harder. After all, If we just diet and exercise, we'd lose weight. And the only reason we don't do that is because we're lazy and have no self-control. In addition, in the USA, we know that anything that is easy cannot be good. Things are only good if it takes blood, sweat, and tears. You combine these two, the feeling of superiority over fat people and that easy things can't be good, and we are now seeing a lot of people freaking out. Wegovy is too easy. Go back to diet and exercise. It doesn't work, but I get to feel better than you. A lot of really badly behaved people are having real heartburn that they aren't going to be enough fat people to look down on. I think they like to write news articles like Wegovy makes you look old. So don't be too surprised if you tell someone you're on Ozempic and they tell you how terrible it is and how you'll grow a horn out of the middle of your forehead. Also, some people might not be happy with the new thinner you. It's amazing to me that people would be like this, but I would be surprised if you didn't have at least one person in your life that lets you know how unhappy they are with the smaller version of yourself. Now, these are people that you probably shouldn't have in your life anyway, but sometimes that's not an option. I'm fortunate that I have a lovely sweetheart, and we are on the Wegovy journey together. We're both making similar adjustments. They haven't had as many events as I have, not zero, but low single digits. We also love to go out to eat. I mean, how do you think we got big enough to qualify for the drug? And we still go out to eat as often as we used to. But now we share a lot more plates. We never finish the appetizer or soup. We rarely get a dessert. We still come home with a lot of doggy bags. But we're in it together. I think this would be a lot harder to navigate if it was just one of us alone. If you're fortunate to have people in your life that you spend a lot of time with, it's probably a good idea to talk a little about how you plan to navigate some of the new situations you might find yourself in. The first time you put down your fork after only 3 bites into the steak and you sit there and watch them eat for another 15 minutes, that could be a little awkward. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. I'm not constantly careening between nuclear meltdowns and putting another brick in the wall. There are some pretty great moments. I remember the first time I had pizza after Wegovy was really starting to work. Now, I love pizza. It's one of my favorite foods. I was on my second slice, getting close-ish to the crust, but I was full. There was no way I was going to finish piece 2. It just wasn't appetizing. I really couldn't eat another bite. I wasn't just full. It no longer looked good to me. And I was like, oh my God, this is what thin people must feel like all the time. I never felt like this when eating pizza before. There is no amount of pizza that I could eat where I would not want another piece. I mean, sure, I could be so full that it might be painful to eat another piece, but to not actually want another piece, that is crazy talk. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. Still is pretty awesome. What I want you to take away from this is that taking Wegovy and Ozempic is like being on a diet. It's not as simple as jabbing and praying. It's going to start making you think about what you eat more. Not because you go to its office to get scolded every few weeks, but because it's going to be in your head saying, yeah, you really don't want that. But just like diets of old, it's possible to ignore that little voice. Just remember that on Wegovy, the penalty might be a lot higher if you do ignore that voice. Sometimes it might be a little whisper in the back of your head that's hard to hear, like, hey, grilled cheese sandwiches, 2 days in a row. How about some dried apricots? It is very possible to outsmart Wegovy and still gain weight even when you're on the drug. So you are on a diet. Your best results will come if you treat it that way. You just have this buddy in your head helping you. It's going, no thanks, I couldn't possibly have another bite. Okay, peeps, we are done. If you're still here, thank you so much. But you know the deal. To appease our YouTube overlords, we must now smash the like button as if your life depended upon it. If you made it through all 4 videos, I owe you a debt of gratitude. Comment below if you did, and I will give the next homeless person $5 in your honor. Don't worry, I was going to give them $5 anyway. It's just going to be dedicated to you. And no, I never worry about what they're going to do with it. Remember, if you are adventurous, subscribe. I have no idea when I'll post another video. I can pretty much guarantee that the next time I post a video, it won't be on Wegovy or weight loss. But it will be something rattling around in my head that needs to get out into the world.